you guys. This is Fatal Seduction, Season 1, Episode 2, Through the Womb. So the scene opens up as Nandi is running down the stairs and Jacob is calling her name. Nandi, Nandi, Nandi. So Nandi was like, it's Professor Mahati. And he goes, oh, Professor. And then he goes, Nandi. And she goes, what? And he goes, you know, um, what do you say? He goes, it's good to see you. And she goes, did you know that I was your professor? And he goes, no, but you have the student list. Did you know that I was your student? And she rolled her eyes. And she goes, nothing happened between us. And he said, okay. And then Nandi starts to walk away. And then Jacob was like, Nandi. She goes, stop it. Okay, I forgot to mention something from the first episode. Uh, Brenda um, was found dead in the bathtub by her housekeeper. So in this scene, the police is over her house investigating her murder, but they're saying that it's looking like a suicide. Uh, and the male cop was like, "Oh, she was a witness in the Juba case, that man who raped and killed some kid." And uh, poor guy, that man was did wrong, and he was did dirty. Uh, so they're saying that Bio Mahati, he got shot in the leg. That's why he has a cane and a limp, because he was working on that case to prove Jibba innocent. And whoever didn't want Jibba innocent shot him. So, two condoms were found at the scene in Brenda's home. So, we already know that Jacob and Nandi used one, and a stranger and Brenda used the other one. So, Nandi gets a flat in her tire, and Jacob is deciding, oh, should I help her or should I not help her? But he decides to be a good Samaritan and help Nandi with her tire because her tire was on a flat. Them tires look too good to be on a flat, though, to be honest. They got a lot of meat on them. So Nandi texts Brenda like, Elish, I don't know, is that her native language? Eish. I don't know what that is. She goes, Brenda, I can't believe it. It's the guy from the weekend is my student. And the detective walks over and sees the phone that was from Nandi, and he's getting an idea like, uh-oh, we gotta go talk to Nandi. Okay, so the scene shifts to where Zen, Va, Va, Vile, and her friend Laura are in the morgue and they're checking out a dead body. So Boy, Boyle, I don't, oh God, his name is so hard to pronounce, says, hey, you got to go talk to the cops. So everybody gathers to go up and leave. And once Bayou opens the door, they see Brenda come in, and Zen and Vayu is looking like, oh my gosh, what the hell? And Zen is about to cry, and they're like, and Zen was like, that's Auntie Brenda. And then Vayu's looking like, oh my God, God help me in his native language. So as Jacob is uh, changing Nandy's tire, she has all these flashbacks of her and Jacob having sex. So now that Jacob's done, he was like, oh, there's a leak in your oil. I noticed it while I was changing your tire. And he was like, you should come by and get it changed. And he gave her his card. And as Nandi gets in the car, she's like, control your thirst, Nandi. Oh, Jacob. Okay, so Vile goes into a bar, but he goes in the back where there's a private office, and he tries to get this lighter to work, but it won't light the cigarette. It's like he's like starting to cry a little bit. So Vayu has a flashback of him and Brenda in a bathtub. And he's telling Brenda, hey, I want to tell people about us. And he's just like, I love you. And then Brenda was like, not as much as you love Nandi. And uh, Vayu was like, I stopped loving Nandi long ago. And then she called Vayu a liar. And then they start having, sex or whatever. And then it comes back to present day. I mean, not present day. He it shows him just like daydreaming. So the scene opens up when Nandi gets home and she's like, sis, Zen, Leonard, anybody? So she runs upstairs and she goes through her panty drawer to find a little vibrator. And she sticks it up there, okay, and the little toy starts vibrating, and she's thinking about Jacob. So she's having a fantasy that Jacob is in the parking lot, pulling his shirt off, pulling down his drawers, and just start kissing on her, okay, in the school parking lot. And he turns her over and just starts hamming on her. And then that's when Nandi orgasms. And Leonard opens the door. Boom! And then Nandi snaps out of it. And then Leonard was like, what are you doing? And Nandi was like, what are you doing home? And Leo was like, I came to fetch you. And Nandi was like, why? And Leonard was like, it's Brenda. She killed herself. And Nandi was like, oh my God. So now we trans where Zen and Laura are sitting on the rock looking at the waves. And Zen was like, she's so full of energy. She's so full of life. Why did she have to die? And Laura was like, it just shows you how much stuff people are dealing with, you know, eh, and how much they're going through in life. And Zen was like, thank you. And Laura was like, what for? Helping me. So Bayo, Leo, Nandi, and the two detectives are in the police station. So the detectives are asking Nandi, what did you do this weekend? Were you with Brenda? And she was like, yes, I was with Brenda for Saturday. That was it. I was not with her last night. And he was like, what else did you do on Saturday? And she goes, we went to a party. And he was like, just the two of you. And she was like, yeah. And he was like, do you think Brenda would ever commit suicide? And Nandy was like, no, I don't even think she would even commit suicide or even think about harming herself, and then I swear, you guys, they want to ask Nandi about the condoms, but I guess because her husband was right there, they didn't want to ask. So they're like, okay, thank you, Miss Mahati, Justice Mahati, and Vile. And then they left the station. So Zen comes down the stairs and was like, have you seen my green jacket? My green jacket. And Leo was like, you mean my green jacket, Zen? And she goes, have you seen my green jacket? Mom, have you seen my, excuse me, my green jacket? And she goes, Zen, I have not seen your bloody green jacket. And she just starts walking away. And then she was like, Zen. And she was like, why are you taking this out on the child? Then 1010, I don't know what 1010, I guess that's its original language. And uh, they just start, bickering for a few seconds, and then Nandi walks away. And then Leo's like, Nandi, Nandi. So the scene shifts, it's nighttime. And Nandi and Leo are in the bathroom, and he sees Nandi lotioning up. So he's like, okay, well, okay, she's not acknowledging me. So I'm going to go to the shower. And then, so as the water's running, she's shifting some clothing, and a paper falls out, and it says proof of purchase, R6B, whatever the code is. And then Leo's phone beeps, and she sees a text from Amada saying, don't worry about Nandi. Our secret is safe. And then Nandi's like, oh, shit. Grabs her jacket and walks out the door. And Leo's like, Nandi, where you going? So Nandi's driving in her car crying, and she lands at Jacob's shop. So Jacob is working on a motorcycle, and Nandi's just sitting there staring at him. And he finally looks up and he sees Nandi like staring at him. And so he's like, what the hell? So he gets up and he walks close to the garage door, and Nandi speeds off. And he's just standing there in the rain, like, that was weird. So Nandi comes down the staircase, and Zen is like eating some cereal in the kitchen, and she was like, Zen, and then Zen was like, don't worry about it. I get it. She was your best friend. And they hug. And then Zen goes out the door. And Leo comes down the steps. And then he just completely ignores him. So the scene shifts to the class. And Mandy's teaching. And she's talking about, rape victims and how the perpetrator will always say, she provoked me, she wanted it. And then she started choking up crying. So she was like, just take the rest of the day for the assignment. And then so she rushes out the door, and Jacob's like, Professor, Professor, Professor. And she finally turns around and tells Jacob it's about Brenda. And she tells him that Brenda killed herself. She said she didn't see this coming. She said how Brenda wanted to be a teacher and how she wanted to make a difference in little kids' lives. And Jacob was like, the Brenda I met didn't seem like she wanted to be a teacher. And Nandi was like, yeah, yeah, it's just this thing that happened 10 years ago. It messed her up really, really bad. She quit her job after a little girl got raped and murdered. And man, Brenda just started partying and not being Brenda at all. And, like, how can I not see this coming? Like, Brenda. And Jacob was like, my dad killed himself. You can't blame yourself because we're both victims of their choices. And, and Nandi, she was like, well, you're a good listener. And Jacob was like, well, you're worth listening to. And I thought that was really cute. So Value is in the morgue with Brenda, and he covered up the slash that she made, the gash. And so the detective comes in and was like, yo, she used a man's belt as a tourniquet to slash herself. And Value was like, whose belt is it? He goes, I don't know. And we found two condom samples. That night she met a man on Tinder. We went to his house, but the semen samples didn't match his. And it wasn't a crime, no, yeah, crime of sexual violence. So then he told Value, like, yo, the judge's wife, she lied, bro. Yo, like he just showed Value the text message that Nandi had sent Brenda the other day. Okay, that the detective was like, women can lie just like any other man can lie, and you guys should have saw the way Value was looking at Brenda's corpse, yo. He looked pissed. So the scene shifts and Jacob changed her oil. And Andy walks over, all slow and sexy, right? And Jacob begins to touch her or whatever. And then he pulls down her panties and he starts to go under. And then they start doing the do or whatever. So the scene shifts to Leo. And Leo's on the campus looking for Nandi. So he runs into this lady, and this lady, she says in her native language, oh, is it your anniversary? And Leo was like, no, I'm just doing a nice venture. Have you seen Nandi? And she was like, oh, Nandi left. She went home. And and so when Leo makes the call, it goes straight to voicemail. And then while he's talking, the scene shifts to Nandi and Jacob doing it on a customer's car. Okay, he's telling Leo is telling the voicemail, "Hey, things have not been right between us. It's mostly my fault, and since things have been happening, you know, I love you. I hope you still love me." Right, the whole time they're doing the do on the car. And I'm just like, wow, Nandi, you really cannot control your thirst for Jacob. Okay, so when they're done doing the Dewey, okay, Nandi is, it looks like she has tears in her eyes because she's having flashbacks of last weekend with Brenda and how happy Brenda was. And man, that kind of brought a little tear to my eye too, because man, that was her last time being with Brenda. So the scene shifts to Jacob and Nandi in a bed, and they're talking in their native language, one of their native languages, because they be switching back and forth. I don't know how to say it, but one of them is Xosa, and then the other one is Zulu, Zulu, but Zulu is the one they speak the most. And he was like, "Oh, you're the judge's wife, you know, you like him more than me." And she was like, "How do you know that? Uh, how do you know that I have a husband? You also must know that I have a daughter." And he was like, "Well, I stalked you on Facebook. Have you ever liked somebody and you stalk them on Facebook?" And she was like, "Well, when I was younger, I didn't have Facebook." And then so she gets up out of bed and she was like, "Jacob, whatever this is." No, she goes, "Jacob, I like you. But whatever this is, we need to stop." And Jacob's looking like, bet. So the sin she's to the Mahati home where Leo's like, "I don't know where she is. She's not picking up her phone and this and that." And Vayu was like, I don't know, but this is about Brenda. And Leo was like, "Well, there's only two things we know about Brenda. She's loose and she drinks." No, 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 he didn't say that. He said she has mental problems and she's loose. And Bayou was like, "We were together. We were involved for over a year." And then Leah was like, "Oh shit, no way." And Valia was like, "Yeah, we were." And he was like, "I'm gonna find out who killed Brenda that night." You guys, Justice Mahalti is looking a little guilty. Okay, you guys should have seen the look on his face when his eyes popped out of his head. Okay, when Vayu said that he was going to find her killer. Okay. And then he was like, "Okay, well, I'll call you." And Vayu was just walking out the door. So Nandi gets a voicemail from Jacob, and then she responds, but she gets his voicemail, and she goes, "I just made it home. Whatever this is, I just can't do it. You know, I'm married." So the scene shifts, and Z and Laura are at a party. They're dancing or whatever. And then this girl, she comes in between them and was like, "Hey, you want for another round?" And Sid was like, "Yes, yes, I do." And then so Laura, she's up there staring at her like, "Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah." And then this random girl comes and was like, "Hey, you want to go out sometime?" And Laura looked at Zen and was like, and then the girl looks at Zen and she was like, "Yo, she's not queer. She's just curious." I was like, "Yo, just you just broke that girl's spirit, yo. Go somewhere." So we pick up Laura is outside And she's looking all bummed and stuff. The girl just broke her. God damn. And so Zen comes outside and was like, hey, is everything okay? And she was like, yeah. And then she gets this random text from Pokeboy. And the text was like, uh, what he say? I'm just shooting my shot. And she goes, oh, you missed? And he goes, well, you haven't blocked me yet. And Laura was telling Zen, hey, don't respond to that. But Zen, she did. So Vayu is sitting on the steps at the college waiting for Nandi. So he sees Nandi, he gets up, and he was like, what happened to Brenda that night? And, about the two men because they have found two semen samples. You know, who did Brenda have sex that night? And she goes, he has nothing to do with that. And, with Brenda's death, and she was like, well, your brother is the only one allowed to have sex with everybody. Valu could have said nothing, and Landy just walked away. Yo, this Jacob dude, he's creepy as fudge, you guys. He, he, he just got done drawing a picture of Nandi. Then he goes in his drawer and pulls out pictures of Zen, but mostly Nandi. And it flashes back where the beginning of the first episode, Jacob is in the bush taking pictures of Nandi on the balcony. Yo, this man is a straight up stalker, you guys. Yo, this is getting creepy. So, this is the end of the episode. I'll see you in the next one.